All right, let's talk about paint palettes. So when you're at the store, there's probably a million types of paint palettes to choose from. Well, maybe not a million, but there's a lot to choose from, and it can be kind of confusing because different palettes are made for different types of painting. So this is a wooden palette made for oil painting or acrylic, and if you get one of these, you just want to seal it with a couple of coats of linseed oil and let it dry. So that will allow you to clean the palette and wipe it off without the paint soaking into the wood. The type of palette that I recommend is something like this, and this is actually a paint palette tray that has a lid on it. Okay, so this is a new one and it doesn't have anything in it yet, and so I recommend putting a piece of glass or palette paper into the palette. So I like to paint on a cool darker tone palette, and so you can see here that I spray painted it. This palette has been used quite a bit, and so it's slowly gotten scraped on the edges. But this is a piece of glass that I got from the local glass store, and they were happy to cut a thick piece of tempered glass, and they sanded the edges of the glass for me so that I don't cut myself when I'm getting the glass in and out. So this is my favorite type of palette because it's easy to clean. I can just use a paint scraper to clean it up, and so it makes it a whole lot easier to clean up. I've let this paint dry, so it'll take a little bit more elbow grease, but this by far is my favorite type of palette. You can insert the glass, or as you can see in this picture, you can purchase the palette paper pads that go in there. Then you can simply tear off the sheet and throw it away and have a nice clean surface. It's also more lightweight if you're traveling back and forth from art lessons to have the paper palettes. The glass can get a little bit heavy. Some of my students switched to the paper because they liked the fact that it did not weigh as much. So when you are at the store and you're noticing all of these different palettes, I want you to stay away from any type of palette that you see that has the individual wells in them. So those are generally made for watercolors or tempera paint, colors that wash up easily with water. Acrylic paints and oil paints are going to dry, and if they dry, then it's going to be really a pain to get it out of the individual wells. Whereas this is watercolor, and I could just wet it and spray it with water and wipe it out. The same with tempera paint. Tempera paint is water soluble, and you can re-wet it and it washes away. And so if you're wanting to oil paint, you do not want to get a palette that has individual wells in it.